Welcome to Crash Concepts, where the economy, energy, and the environment are explored. Up next, fresh ideas and insights into the factors that are driving the world and shaping your future. Presenting information you can't afford to live without, here's Chris Martenson.
Welcome, everyone, to this Peak Prosperity Podcast. I am your host, of course, Chris Martenson, and it is November 17th, 2017. Today, we're going to talk about a business idea that Adam and I first encountered on the Investor Summit at Sea cruise we took with the real estate radio guys, Robert Helms and Russell Gray, a couple of the best guys you could ever want to meet. Now, many of our listeners no longer believe in sending their money to Wall Street, thinking it's either a big scam or at least a system that seems to only reliably enrich Wall Street by some odd 100-plus year coincidence. So, by having our capital, your capital, doing nothing, well, that gets old too. So one of our missions here at Peak Prosperity is to surface revenue-generating ideas that you can use. Today is one that I really like, and I'll let the business motto of the company behind this idea speak for itself. Do good and do well. The idea is around residential assisted living, and there's quite a big story behind both the why and the why now of this idea. Speaking with us today is Gene Guarino, the founder of the Residential Assisted Living Academy, a teaching organization that helps investors and entrepreneurs bring a very needed but somewhat complex idea to market to the benefit of everyone. Gene is the president, he's the CEO and founder of RAL Academy. He has over 30 years experience in real estate investing and business. Welcome, Gene.
Thank you, Chris. What a wonderful introduction. Thank you.
Well, it's been a real pleasure getting to know you. I think we've met a few times now, and certainly have had people that we trust and know, the guys at New Harbor, the financial firm, also looking at your idea, and everybody coming away agreeing, wow, this is such a great idea. So before we get into that, just to set the stage, I what I like to do is have people understand really who you are. I said 30 years of experience in real estate, but Gene, where did you start and how did you get to where you are now?
Yes, 30 years. I am getting old, that's for sure, Chris.
And you and me both.
I started really, really young. I was a professional musician as a teenager, and we would play at different venues, and eventually had a music school, recording studio, record label. And at that time, and I was 18, we had a building that we were renting. So we were tenants, we had a landlord. After 2 years of renting, the landlord was terrible in lots of different ways. We said, we're either shutting down this business or we've got to move. And we looked up the street, saw a for sale sign, and that was the beginning of our real estate career. Bought that first property, no money down, because we had no money. As musicians, you kind of spend more than you make, and that's what you do. And every property since then has been, in essence, other people's money. So everything that we've done from then to now has really led us to where we are today. And the only thing that I do is residential assisted living. It's a silver tsunami of seniors coming our way. It's an opportunity to help people, and we can make a lot of money.
Well, a musician, of course, the definition is somebody who takes $5,000 of equipment, puts it in a $500 car to play a $50 gig. So,
and end up with $5 after paying your bar tab. So,
exactly, it's the rule of 10, just going that way. And so. Let's dive into this idea, because I really love the idea. In fact, I got to be honest, full disclosure, I love it enough that I have my kids looking into the idea, thinking that this might be something that they would be interested in pursuing. And so we're absolutely going through your program and taking a good hard look at this. So you mentioned a term there, the silver tsunami. What is that?
Silver tsunami of seniors. The facts are in. There's 77 million baby boomers, and they're aging. But the oldest baby boomer is 71 years old, 72 maybe now. So those people, they're not in assisted living for the most part, but their parents are. So there's a lot of people, I'm 56, who are my age, that have parents who are 85 and 95 who do need help and assistance. So we're paying for it on that side. And you got kids and college kids and grandkids on the other side. And we're looking at this saying, okay, it's going to come for us. And it's funny, Chris, that you said my kids are looking at this because, yes, they can do good and do well now, but someday old man Chris is going to need a place. And if you own your own home, you can move right into the master bedroom and live for free. So This silver tsunami is unstoppable. It's a wave of population that is aging. It's a spike in any chart you see. And as this aging population comes, they need help with their activities of daily living, or an ADL, that's what we call it in the industry. They're going to need a place to live and caregivers to take care of them. It's a crisis on one side and a huge opportunity on the other.
Now, Gene, I've been working with a pair of local realtors around here, and one of the people I was talking with in this realtor office, they actually specialize in this phone call where they say, "Hey, mom, dad, they're rattling around this big house. Hey, we've got to move them out. We're looking to put the house on the market, but our contingency is we have to find a place for them first." And they don't have any good answer for that locally. So I'm here in Western Massachusetts. But they say it's a big problem, that the biggest impediment to getting mom and dad out of the big place they're rattling around in is where are they going to go next? Real shortage here where I live. Is that an uncommon or a common sort of a condition?
First of all, that is a huge opportunity. You've got somebody who's right there speaking to that person with the need. And the solution is somebody like myself or you or somebody else opening a home there that is converted into the assisted living. So they literally can move into that home and be taken care of while that real estate agent or broker liquidates the house and has all the money to be able to pay for it. There's, Massachusetts I'm not as familiar with because I haven't been there to do presentations yet. They've been begging me to come to Boston, but Western Mass, a different world than Eastern Mass, we know that. But there's not a lot of this, meaning single-family homes converted into this purpose in Mass that I know of, or New England in general. It's also really expensive there. The average person in the country today is paying $3,628 per person per month to live in assisted living. Most of them are big box facilities. It's a big, huge place. Could be a prison if you put some barbed wire on the top.
Yeah.
You walk through the front door and you just smell the neglect. And when I first faced this problem, this issue with my mom, my dad, I said, I don't want that. I want to create a home situation, not home-like, but actual home. And that's what we created. So we take a home in a residential setting, convert it, and now it's used as this residential assisted living.
So let's talk about that. Clearly we got mom or dad, they're rattling around the big house. Maybe they're still getting along, but it's getting tougher, and they would like some help. But they're not ready for the place that smells like neglect, or even if it's not neglectful, they're not ready for the, let's say, the end of care part of life. They're still ready and able to engage. They want to enjoy life, and so it's a middle sort of a ground. Is that what we're talking about?
Mm-hmm. Actually, let me kind of lay it all out, because your situation that you described there, if they're still rattling around, quote unquote, that means they're mobile, they're independent, they just can't take care of the big house that they don't need anymore. So that might be where they're ready for independent living. Independent living is really any community that you see that says 55 and above. So it's age restricted for adults of 55 or above. But it also could be a building, a house, an apartment complex, townhome, a group where it's not all in one home, but they have their own space. They're taking care of themselves, but they're in a group or a community of seniors of like mind where they might have a clubhouse and even a golf course or all of those things. But that's more independent living, where what I do is the next step, which is assisted living. Now, assisted living, this is where it gets different, Chris, is nobody's going to move into assisted living until they need to. It's usually an event. Somebody is in that home rattling around, and they're going up to the bedroom on the second floor, and they slip on the stairs. And now the kids come over and say, oh, my goodness, we bring mom to the doctor. The doctor takes the x-ray and says, thank goodness it's not broken, but she really can't be going up to the bedroom on the second floor. As a matter of fact, somebody should be helping take care of her. And now the caseworker in this case in the hospital looks at the family and says, okay, brothers and sisters, sons and daughters of mom here, who's going to step up and take care? And at that point, really what happens, I'm actually in North Carolina right now, but I was just visiting my sister in South Carolina for a couple of days. And at that point, the brothers and sisters have the conversation. Who's going to move in with mom? Who's going to stop in and check on her? And then if you can't, or on top of that, we may need to hire somebody to come into the home to take care of mom and dad. And that's $20 an hour, $23 an hour is the national average. So eight hours of that a day, you may as well put mom into and then the proverbial word, a home. And that's where everybody gets nervous and feels guilty. I'm not going to put mom in a home. We should take care of her ourselves. But the reality is we're all not designed to be caregivers and take care of people that way. But there are people that are designed to do that. That's what they do. It's their profession, their calling. So this group home that we talk about, residential assisted living, just simply put, think of the neighborhood you live in. If it is a neighborhood, not out in a rural area, but neighborhood, there's a home, and that home is a group home for seniors. There's caregivers coming during the day and at night, so there's 24-hour care, but it's not doctors and nurses and gurneys. Some are more capable to take care of themselves than others, but nobody walks into that saying, hey, this looks like a great club to join. They move there because there's a need, usually event-driven, and they move in and they're taken care of 24/7 at whatever level of care they need. When they're ready for medical help, though, that's when they move to the next level, nursing home or skilled nursing. That's not what we do. That's a commercial type operation. We do a residential assisted living.
And so the great description of that. I get that spectrum, and it makes a lot of sense. And are you finding that when people, so here I am, just to speak locally, here I am in Western Mass, I would assume that, in many cases, if I was getting towards that part where I'm looking for getting into an assisted living, I'm not sure I would want to stay here in the cold New England area, but are people being mobile? Are they moving for this, or are they wanting to stay where their family already is typically? How does the mobility sort of factor into this?
The family really is the key. And let's assume, I'm going to make a rude assumption, that we love mom and dad, right? We want to be near them. They want to be near us. Mm-hmm. So if that's the situation, typically when somebody retires, let's say they're 65, that's the proverbial retirement age, they move south where it's warm. I get that. But a lot of people, the majority of them, stay where they're at. So they age in place. Now they're in Western Mass. It's cold. The winters seem to get longer and colder every time. And now they're 85 and the kids still live nearby. It's not, let me now move to Florida and hope the kids come visit. They definitely want to be as close as they can to the family. But it's almost the other way around. The client, and we talk about this in our training, is that the resident lives in the home, but the client is you and me. We're the two brothers paying mm-hmm. to take care of mom or dad. They may not know what it costs to live there. If they knew it cost $6,000 a month, they'd have a heart attack and die. Yep. So the kids are the ones who are picking the home, and they're going to pick a place that is nearby them so they can conveniently go visit. And it's going to be in a good location, a good condition, good services, good care. The location near the family is really critical.
Now, how long have you been turning the key on this idea?
I had my first home 4.5 years ago, and I've been training people how to do it pretty much since day one. But I heard about this like 15 years ago, maybe mm-hmm. even longer. And it was a gentleman in the front of the room saying, assisted living is going to be a great thing to do. You should all get in the business. And I remember running up to the front and saying, tell me more. And he said, well, I can't. I don't actually do it. I'm just telling you should do it. Uh-huh. So I was disappointed. And the people that I found that were doing it even 15 years ago really weren't willing to share with me how to do it, or they weren't capable of teaching. Not everybody's a teacher and can explain. Mm-hmm. So it kind of dropped in my consciousness. And it wasn't until 5, 6, 7 years ago when my mom started to need help that I realized, wow, I'm in this situation. It's not just money and opportunity, it's real world. What am I going to do? And as going through that with mom and then finding out that really the choices out there, when you go to see what's in your community, like Chris, if you're saying there's nothing out here like this that you're talking about, Gene, a nice home in a nice neighborhood, that it's all a group home and there's nothing like that, your choice is now the big box facility, 200 beds, 150 beds, 300 beds. Some are old, some are new, but it ain't home. And somebody walks in the front door and it's eye candy for the kids. Look at that. There's a dining hall. There's a movie theater. There's a garden. And mom's thinking, I just want to stay at home. But mm-hmm. she needs help. So we walk through that process. And if you do have a nice place with great care, it's probably full with a waiting list. And now it's like, oh, my goodness, I'm willing to spend $7,000 a month, but I can't even get in the front door. And that's the need, the opportunity that we have. There's so many seniors who need this now, and the silver tsunami that is coming. This is good now, and it's just getting better and better and better.
Now, this idea then is you've given the outlines of it. You've hinted at it. It involves buying a house that might be just a residential house that would be no different from one you would see in an ordinary neighborhood. but that there's a process by which you can convert that into a group living situation. Is this, does this, if I have that right, A, B, how does that vary by state and zoning? And, as far as I'm concerned, many small municipalities, their town officials ought to answer the phone by saying, "Hello, Department of Business Prevention, how can I stop you?" How does this, how hard is this, and does it really vary by location?
Well put, and yes, it does. That is a great way to say it. I think I'm going to record that on a message, and that's great. So the reality is it is different in every state, and it is the key here. Anybody who's listening who's a real estate investor, this is where the Fair Housing Act works in your favor. The Fair Housing Act is a federal law that's been on the books since the 70s, and most of the time, a landlord, it works against you. We have to accept this tenant. I can't kick this person out until the weather breaks or whatever it is. In this case, they can't discriminate against age and everything else. So when a community says, we're going to limit you to 4 unrelated adults, 6 unrelated adults, well, according to the Fair Housing Act, that is discrimination. Who's to say what a family is and what size a family is? Now, it's a group home for the elderly, not a business. We're very specific at our training when we talk about when you operate, when you do this, it's a group home. It's a rental home, one, but we're not leasing it to individuals. We don't have tenants. We're doing a group home that's licensed by the state or the Commonwealth, and every state has its own unique paperwork or documentation or who runs it and so on. But every state typically has a limit. You can have 8, 10, 12, 16 people in a single family home. And then individual areas, counties or towns or cities may have additional rules and regulations, but it's not something that's federally covered. Each state has their own set of rules, and then locally. So there's a need. Some states prevent, business prevention, and I can name some states, which I won't, California, New York, which are like that all the time, just trying to put the kibosh on anything. But the need is so high that many states are having to relent and do this. Now, I'm going to give you both ends of the spectrum. I'm in Arizona. That's where I live. In Arizona, it's God's waiting room. A lot of people move there, and they age in place and so on. So we have lots and lots of seniors. There's over 3,000 of these homes. Now, that's 3,000 licensed homes. There's other homes that are not licensed that are operating, I am sure. But out of those 3,000 homes, most of them only have 5 people in them. So it's really not that many people. It's 30 times 5, 15,000 out of 1.5 million that need this help. But in other states, we have a student in Rhode Island who literally opened up the very first residential assisted living home in the entire state. So never been done before. It didn't have rules and regulations. We helped them get it through the state because it had never been done before. So they have a home license for 10 or 12, I believe. And that home itself it's 10. That's now that I think about it. Licensed for 10 in a home in a residential setting, and is the first and only one at this time. So different areas, different rules. Some have rules, some don't. Arizona, there's a whole department. It's an entire floor of a government building. Florida, same thing. Other states, it's all new. So we walk students through this process all over the country.
Now, it took me a minute to find it because they call it something slightly different, but the rules and regulations around what they call residential care in Massachusetts, about 31 pages, very detailed. Everything from how are you what's your policy around self-directed medication, like the old person living in there wants to take their own aspirin, to, how often the place is checked, feeding. I mean, there's a lot of rules around this. So it is part of your program, I assume, there's clearly a lot of business operations and rules and regulations. There's a lot of things that need to be factored in and considered to do this and do this well. And it varies, I guess, by state. So is that part of your program, is to begin walking through that process, or maybe even tell us about how this person in Rhode Island did it?
Yeah, and very well put. And everybody, I want you to hear what Chris said, that it's called a certain thing in Massachusetts, called a different thing in New York, in Arizona, and Florida. So you need to, first of all, find out what is it called exactly in your area. Easiest way to do that, whatever your state you're in, is to go to Google and put in DHS, Department of Health Services, the name of the state, and it's going to get you to a government website. Then in the keyword search, put in assisted living. Even if they call it something different, like Georgia, they call it a personal care home. So whatever it is, put in assisted living, it's going to get you to that area of the government website that has what Chris discovered, in his case, 31 pages of here's some rules and regulations. So now the rules and regulations, most states have 31 pages or something similar where here's a bunch of guidelines on what we do and can't do and how you do it and how it's done. I want everybody to take a deep breath, though. You don't have to do that operations part. There's two parts to this, real estate on one side and then business on the other. I operate both. I own the real estate and the business. I lease the real estate from myself in a different entity, but I'm not the manager or the caregiver at the home. So I've hired a manager who knows all those rules inside and out and fill in the paperwork, and they are the ones that hire caregivers, and the caregivers are the ones that are there day to day. So I do this in a hands-off approach where my job is to manage the manager. I don't need to know all the nuance of that, but I know how to look it up. I read through it as I teach others around the country. Like I said, I'm in the Carolinas right now, so I've looked up all the rules and regulations for where I'm going to be speaking tomorrow in Asheville, North Carolina, and I'll be sharing with them, here's all the rules and regulations. Now, not 31 pages worth. There's a lot of that is just kind of basic stuff. You have to feed the seniors. It has to be balanced meals. Mm-hmm. You need to have a menu. There needs to be a entry process, an assessment. There needs to be an exit process. There's paperwork. There's a residency agreement. So in our training, we do cover a lot of that, and I show them here's the policies and procedures, or SOP, standard operating procedures, that we use, because when you get licensed, there's really three requirements. The house needs to be safe, so senior safe, and different states require different things. Two, you need to have an administrator, a manager, so the state's going to have some kind of qualification. On the low end, 18 years old, fog a mirror, you're not a criminal, right? That's the low end. There's states that it's that simple. And then there's other states like Arizona, where I am, where to be the manager, you need 2 years of a direct care experience working with people like seniors. You need 104 hours to become a caregiver and another 40 hours to be trained to be a manager, and the 2 years experience. So I'm not going to do that. No way. I just hire that person, pay them money to hang their license on the wall. But it's different in different states. The SOP, the standard operating procedures, is the third piece. Safe house, administrator, and then policies and procedures. You need documentation. So the state can say, well, we know that Chris is going to run a good operation. Here's his rules and regulations internally. It follows our guidelines. Begin.
I got that. Fantastic. So there's a number of ways to get involved in this, and you are fairly direct, being both the owner and the business manager, leaving the operations and the caregiving to others. Is there another way for people to get involved with this that's even further from that? Is there a role for investors only, or how does this play out right now?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I'm actually transitioning from owner-operator only to investing in other projects. As we bring more people in and through this process and they get their homes, I'm seeing tremendous projects all across the country. So we teach people how to syndicate, raise capital for this on one hand, and on the other hand, as I see good deals, I'll be investing in them myself. My goal is to not just own and operate a handful, but to be involved in dozens or many more than that all across the country. Because this industry, just bigger picture, because you're a really great, you're an amazing big picture thinker, and all of your listeners, I'm sure, know that. But big picture, right now, the big money, the hedge funds that collect money from investors who just write checks and put it in a mutual fund, they invest in senior housing from nursing homes, hospitals, big box assisted living. But their cap rates have gotten crushed or compressed because they're chasing the same projects. So they're battling over the same deals. So they don't make as good of a rate of return as they used to. 15 years ago, they were making 15%. And now they're making 5, 6, 8%. But in an individual, if I own that home and I operate this business, I can make 30 or 40% cash on cash. And if I leverage, I can make over 100%. So it's very lucrative. But the concept of what I see in the future, looking forward here, is that the big guys who are doing the big box facilities eventually are going to come and look at the 40,000 individual homes that are all across the country now. And they're going to look for operators who have 10, 20, or 100 of these homes and say, I want to buy what you've got. because then they can write a big check for 50 million, 100 million, 200 million, and deploy the capital that they so easily attract. And they'll buy us out at 2-3 times what we have into it, what I'd be willing to pay for it. So I'm looking bigger picture, whether that's 2 years or 5 years, I can't tell you, but that is, I predict what will happen there.
Now let's talk about the inevitable downturns that come along. It's been a long part of the business expansion cycle. You've hinted at the fact that these cap rates have gotten crushed, meaning that we're pretty late in the game when you're talking cap rates down all the way down there. Is there what sense do you have of the ability of this idea we're talking about, residential assisted living, to weather the downturns?
You know, one of the things that I know I've experienced on 56 is 2 significant changes, downturns, cycles in my career. There was one before that, but I wasn't really paying attention. So in those, there's winners and losers. There's people that were aware and prepared, and others that were caught short or just didn't get prepared. I went through this industry when we had the downturn, because frankly, that's when I got in. When I got in, that's when things were just starting to come out. And what I found is that a lot of these people that were in this industry, they saw their occupancy rates in assisted living go from 92% on average, and it came down to about 87%. So what that told me is that even in a very bad, the great recession that we had, even in that time, people were not putting mom into homes. What they were doing, though, is delaying and waiting until they absolutely had to. Now the economy's better. People are putting mom and dad into the home sooner and faster. But in the next downturn, that's just it. We don't know if we're in the 9th inning or extra innings, or, we don't know where we're at in this cycle. It could all end tomorrow, and we all know that. But when mom is living in a home and being taken care of, it is absolutely counterintuitive to think they're going to just say, we can't afford it. We're going to take mom back home and take care of her ourselves. And they're going to figure it out. And whether they pay us in gold or silver or gold or water or, bread, I don't know. They're going to pay, and they're going to take care of mom one way or the other. They're going to pay for mom and dad's care. Now, if the market goes down, that person who's needing the care may delay and wait, but the people who are in the home, they're going to stay. And now the question is, how do you compare to other homes? And if you have a better mousetrap, a better product or service or care, you're definitely going to be full while others are empty, because the quality always rises to the top.
And this seems like an opportunity here to provide better care. As you mentioned, the large institutional approach with many, many beds. They have a corporate way they need to do things, but here you have the opportunity to create little, let's call them microclimates. 5 people, 10 people in a home through the intake process. Sounds like you could potentially get sophisticated and select and make sure that you've got more of a customized sort of approach that I think would increasingly appeal to people more than the institutional approach as we move forward here.
2 things. One is ratios. When you go to a big box facility, Chris, where they have 150 residents, you can ask them and say, what is your staffing ratio? And they might say 10-1. When you come to me, I'll say 5-1, 6-1. Well, what's the difference? 10-1, that includes the chef, the cook, the cleaner, the janitor, the accountant, the marketing person, the lawyer, everybody. All right, change the question. How many direct care staff do you have? Well, the ratio there is 15-1, 20-1, 30-1 in a big box facility. In our home, it's 5-1, 6-1. So the ratios there, the direct care is much different. Instead of a nameless, faceless person that's interchangeable and not accountable in a big box facility, we're in a home where the caregiver knows that resident and they know each other intimately and they're family. So that's that side of it. On the other side, when we talk about, there are so many things you just came up with. I mentioned that part on the care, but you mentioned kind of unique stratas where somebody may say, we have students that are opening up kosher homes. We have other ones that are opening up lifestyle homes, LBGT. We have other ones opening up just all women or all men, or whatever it may be. So you can niche it down as far as you want, and you will definitely attract those people. Homes with pets versus without. Homes that specialize in certain activities or healthy eating or certain types of, and all of those are opportunities. So some of the people listening, they've got a passion. They want to help and do good, do well. I really appreciate you opening with that. Do good, do well. The idea of doing something good for other people. Well, you're going to make money, no doubt, but doing something good for other people is phenomenal. And if you have a passion, I want to share my my food insight, my health insight. I've been talking to, Ed Griffin about doing something with his cancer research and so on that. And, Beth down in Belize about doing something there. So there's different niches and different locations, and you can do this internationally. That's the other thing. The baby boomers, people don't realize this, 1945, World War II ended for everybody. So the guys came home, they got busy, population explosion all over the world. So you literally can do this any place in the world. And we now have people coming in, not just nationally, but internationally to our training to learn how to do this in their own country.
Now let's talk about this training, because I've investigated enough to have watched a few of the videos that you've got for free on your website, which I want to direct people to in a second. But how involved is the training? What would be a time commitment involved here?
What I did was I created a training the way I like to learn. I'm not a go to school for 4 years guy or even a year. So I knew that I could get across everything that somebody needed to know in a short period of time. So we do a 3-day immersion class. It's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We start on Thursday with cocktails and hors d'oeuvres and then begin. Day 2, we get in a bus and you come and see my homes and you learn it from the inside out. That's really the key day. And that context for the content is incredibly powerful. By the end of the 3 days, somebody knows what this is, how to do it, what the steps are to do it. And then they just need to decide, am I going to be participating in this way? And I always say to people, I literally say, I guarantee you're all going to get involved in assisted living one way or the other. Yep. And they all say, what do you mean? Well, you're going to own the real estate or own and operate the business, or you or a family member is going to be lying in a bed writing a check for $5 or $10 to somebody else to take care of you. Nobody's escaping this one. So the training itself is 3 days. It's very comprehensive. If somebody wants more help after that, we have it available. But we just did our national convention last weekend, and I was just tickled pink and so proud that people were coming up with our home study version, which we have, just learn it at home. And they had started their first home, second home, third home from the home study. So I'm very excited about that learning process as well.
Now, just I know this is too broad of a question, so a range is totally acceptable. But if somebody wanted to buy a home, I assume they're looking for probably someplace that's in a good area. I saw from one of your videos it should be one level if possible instead of two or more levels. But again, you could work with the multi-levels if you had to, but one level is great. So you had a variety of criteria. But just generally speaking, if you bought one of these homes and you wanted, I assume there's things you have to do to bring it up to grade, up to code, up to the actual specific use. How much more of an investment is that?
Yeah, and I really want to make sure that people heard what you said. Location is key. So the location of the house is more important than 1-story, 2-story, or how many square feet and how many bathrooms. If it's the right location, we can scrape away whatever's there and build it new. If it's the wrong location, I don't care if it was perfectly designed for this use, it ain't going to work. This is not the field of dreams. If they build it, they'll come. No, if it's in the right location. So what makes the right location is the demographics of the people that live there. What I'm encouraging you to do is to be thinking about the people that live there. What I'm looking for is not a college campus where the average age is 30, but an area that is mature, where the average person there is a husband and wife owner, and they're 50 or 60. Why? Because they own their home, they're stable, they're 50 or 60, which means mom and dad are 80 and 90. And then the last piece is not upper income, but not average, a little above average. So upper middle income, something like that, because the average person is going to move mom or dad into a average home. And I'm going to encourage you to do a little bit more upscale, not top of the top, not cream of the crop, but somebody who can afford it or has the wherewithal to be able to get that money. Because we focus on private pay, not Medicare or Medicaid. So it's really the demographics. The house, now, single level, if any senior has mobility issues up or downstairs, that's all taken care of. Single level is best, but a lot of areas around the country primarily have 2-story, 3-story. So you certainly can do that, but bedrooms should be on the first floor if somebody is not mobile. But my grandma, she'd go up the stairs till she was 100. But after that, it just got to be way too much. They ended up moving a bed from a second floor down to the dining room. So in a assisted living, single level is best. You can do multi-story, but if that senior needs help going up the stairs, a chairlift or an elevator is the That's what you need. And then your question was simple. Well, how much more money do I have to put into in renovations or getting it up and running? And the answer is it depends. It depends on where you're starting. If it's a 100-year-old house and it's 4 stories tall and it's, narrow hallways and narrow doorways, all plaster and lath, that's going to be an expensive project. Mm-hmm. If it's a home that was designed for somebody who's older and it's got wide doors, smooth floors, it already has a few grab bars around, you may literally need to do nothing, absolutely nothing, and you can open. So in between that is reality. And then one other piece is the idea of the real estate, owning versus controlling. We have students, and you absolutely can do this, lease a home and operate your business out of it. It's not just a real estate play. And, some markets that I travel to, I was in Denver recently, is screaming through the roof. You go to other areas where real estate prices are just so high, they're way past the peak of 10 years ago. I look at it and say, okay, but it could come down. If you think the home is high priced now, lease it with an option to buy. And that leasing of the home, you control it. And that's the key. You want a long-term lease. So if I or the landlord's going to do some renovations like widen doorways, put in some grab bars, take out carpets, put in hardwood, tile, linoleum, maybe take out a bathtub, put in a shower that you can walk in easily. If somebody's going to do that kind of work, I want to be operating for 5 years. I want a long-term lease with an option to renew or option to buy. You can tell, Chris, I can go 3 hours on this. So,
well, you're a great communicator, and I totally understand what you mean when you say, there's a way that you learn, and you decided to bring your ability to communicate into this because not everybody's a great communicator. You are one. It's real easy to listen to you talk, and I understand it. Not only that, but I walk away knowing what you said. Those are great qualities. And so, as I mentioned, I'm really interested in this because the need is really there, and somebody's going to fill that need. And so this feels like an idea that, by the way, demographics says is coming. And as you say, well, life says we all get there sooner or later anyway. So put all that together, really great idea. And it sounds like a very interesting program. And we're going to be going through it with my family. So your Real Estate Assisted Living Academy, Gene, how do people get to that, and how would they find out more?
I'm going to give you 2 websites. First, the website, ralacademy.com. So that's residential assisted living, just ralacademy.com. There's lots of great videos there that somebody can watch, and you can learn quite a bit from there, answer a lot of questions. The second one, I'm going to offer your listeners kind of a free training. It's kind of a primer course for residential assisted living. It's about an hour total, but I broke it down into 7 parts, about 10 minutes each. And in those 7, you'll learn a lot. And if somebody wants that, it's free. They just go to ral101.com, ral101.com, and just put in your name and your email, and you'll have access to it. And it's a great way to get all the information you need to answer questions. At the end of that, if you want to do this, there's a home study course. There's a live training. Information about those are on the website. Love to answer people's questions and love to share this with people.
Great. And one last question, which is, when you say people have the opportunity to come for a 3-day course, where is that?
We always do the trainings in Arizona. The reason why we do that, Phoenix, Arizona, right near the Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport. You just fly in, take the free shuttle to the Hilton Hotel just south of there. We have our training there. We stay there because just like the real estate guys, we enjoy ourselves, and the networking is half. It really is. So you're there from Thursday night through Sunday late in the afternoon. And that training itself, the reason why we do it there is because I teach the class. My team is there, and I have a staff of 10. Half of them are there, and you come and see my homes, and nobody else will let you do that. Walk into the home and reveal all the secrets behind the scene. That's why we do it there. And it's a great place to be. Nice and warm and fun.
Fantastic. How often do you offer those 3-day courses?
We have the classes 8 times a year, and the classes fill up weeks, if not a month or so in advance. The December class has been full for a month, and our February class is getting full, so we're almost there now. So 8 times a year, 3-day class, Friday through Sunday, come on Thursday night, and sign up early because they do fill up.
Well, fantastic. With that, Gene, so great having you. I can't wait to see you again at the next Investor Summit at Sea. I hope you're going to be there. I certainly will be. And it's just been fantastic learning about this opportunity.
Thank you, Chris. I really appreciate the opportunity and look forward to helping any of your listeners with this.
All right. Well, with that, Gene, thank you so much, and we'll talk again soon.